Hi, everyone. This is Nancy with Relationships of the Heart. Welcome to our podcast today. I'm so thankful that you could take the time to join us wherever you are listening to us on the web, whether it is on YouTube, social media, maybe someone sent the link to you, maybe you've called in by phone later and listened to the replay. Hey, if you ever have any questions, be sure to contact me. If you're on a page where there's a comment, you can make a comment. But if there's nothing there, wherever you're listening to us, it's just a straight podcast, whether it's on iTunes or somewhere else, you can just email me at nancy@relationshipswithnancy.com. So I'm just ready today to just step into talking to our guest. I feel this is a very unique ministry, and I'm welcoming Mark with us today, and I'm going to allow him to just start out here and tell us exactly what his title is, the organization, the name of the organization, and where he serves. So welcome, Mark, and your turn.
Thank you, Nancy, and thanks for having me. My name is Pastor Mark Hewitt, and I am the Director of Development, but also the interim director overall of the Association of Christian Truckers. And I always like to say that's not an oxymoron. There are Christian truckers. And, yes, so there's an organization called the Association of Christian Truckers in which we have many facets, but one of the big things we do is we have a facility in Brownstown, Illinois, at exit 68 on I-70, where the drivers come in just like they come into a truck stop, but we give them free laundry, free parking, free showers, free coffee, free snacks, free food. You get the idea. So we offer all of that, and then we are able to minister to them. So we start by ministering to their needs. Then we have the opportunity to minister to their heart. And so I direct that organization right now, which entails a lot of traveling and then sometime here on the grounds, which is where I'm talking to you today.
Well, I just felt when I first heard that you were part of this, this was something that was really perked my interest, because I recall someone that was a relative and a friend quite a few years ago. He was a long-haul trucker, and sometimes short, but he went through a season, I can't remember how long, but he was trucking across the U.S. And when my niece was young, they would get in the truck with him, and they would travel. And one of the reasons they did that so they could be together. But then as a Christian, I also thought about, okay, but here I'm sitting in church, and and this is all good when I say this, that we're encouraging people to be here on Sunday and to join us. I'm talking about the brick and mortar church offline here, and that's all good. I attend one. But what about the people that say they're truckers? They're on the road. Or what about the people that they work on Sundays? That's what their job is. And then I started being online more, and from talking to you, you mentioned this, and I looked at it online, and I thought, this is just amazing, because I'm sure there are truckers out there also that are believers in Jesus, but they can't attend church because they're on the road. And Sunday comes, and they're not always in the same location, so even finding a church, am I correct here when I say this, that even they're trucking across the U.S., but maybe they've located a church, but they're not coming through there at the same time. So they lack that community. So is there a way that this helps build community, I guess, as they go? How exactly does that look in the area of relationships?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a really good question. And the thing is that drivers, there's several different types of drivers. There's drivers that have a regular route that are off on the weekends. And then there are drivers that have a route that carries them over the weekend. And, of course, the mail must go through. I mean, our goods and services, we would not survive more than a couple of days without the trucks because they're delivering the goods every day. And so a lot of times they don't have a lot of control about where they are on Sunday. The other problem becomes that many churches don't want them on their parking lots because they're big and heavy and they can damage their pavement if it's not very good. And they can't get to the local church where they're at. So there are several alternatives. We are one ministry, and we have ours here. And how we handle that is we kind of I am also involved with a church in Sandusky, Michigan called BAM International, Bill Anderson Ministries. And what our church does is we live stream our service every Sunday and Wednesday. And so we also have a telephone conference line going on at the same time. So drivers can stop, use their laptops, and be online with us at church, or they can get on the phone and have their Bluetooth going while they're going down the road. And so we offer them those options. Here at the Road Angel Trucker Center, we have service every Sunday. And, we don't care who's here, just come on in. And so there are some options out there. There are several other ministries that have ministries right in the truck stops. And there the driver can go to the trucker's lounge and have a service, or there may be a trucker's chapel out in the lot that they can go into and have a service as well. So there's a lot going on to minister to truckers, but with everything going on, we did a survey, and we are only reaching about 18% of the long-haul truckers, of which there's over 3 million over the road. Mm. And if you add all the trucks together, there's about 6 million trucks rolling in the United States.
Wow. That is a lot. As you said, the 18%, and then you went into this 3 million and 6 million. The 18%, this just dropped into my mind and heart that this is something, and I don't think we think of that. I've never thought of this. I mean, I am someone of prayer who prays, but a good thing to pray for would be to be able to reach the truckers.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me give you a little idea of what their life can be like, because I was a trucker for 15 years. And one thing I found is that the trucker gets a lot of disrespect. The trucker comes into, I'll give you a typical day that has happened to me many times and repeated. You'll come in to get loaded, and, of course, there's a line of 10 trucks, and you have to wait. You can't sleep because you got to keep your place in line. And then you get loaded, and the shipper says to you, this thing must be there at 5 a.m., no fail. You must be there. You got to get there. They're going to run out of this stuff. So the driver works hard, drives overnight, sometimes stretches the logbook and does that. And then he gets to the place, he pulls in and says, all right, I made it. I'm here with your product. And the receiver says, I don't need that stuff. I don't know why they told you that. Just go out there in the yard and park, and I'll get to you when I can. Okay, so you just drove all night. Now you have to wait for him to call you into the dock. And you really can't sleep well because you could wake up and it could be night, So you wait, and you get unloaded. That might take an hour or two. Then you call your dispatcher. Your dispatcher says, hey, I got another load for you, but you got to be up there by noon, so you're going to have to really hustle. And you get up there by noon, and there's 10 trucks ahead of you, and you go through that whole process over again. Now, where did you sleep in there? Not very much, right? So correct. That's kind of typical of an irregular route truck driver, we call them, which is the majority of the trucks in the United States. You would think the big companies like Yellow and UPS, and you would think they would be the majority of the trucks in the United States, but the truth of the matter is that the majority of the trucks in the United States are run by companies of 20 trucks or less. And so these guys are out there. They're in a lot of stress. Those big rigs are not easy to drive, and you have to pay attention. And, of course, the four-wheelers, we call them, who don't have any idea of what we're going through, pull right out in front of us, not realizing that we got 80,000 pounds and we can't stop on a dime, And if we do stop and slow down, it takes us forever to get back up to speed again. So those are just some of the things. And then you're away from home, And when I used to drive, I remember going, man, I got to get home. I got to see my family. I had little kids, I have to see my family. And you get home, and you see your family, and then you go through the bills. And you look at the bills, and you say, I got to get back on the road because I got to make enough money to pay these bills. So there's a lot of stress, and what we do is to help them see that God cares about them, and He loves them, and we love them. And so we meet their needs first. Then I had a pastor tell me many years ago that you need to be a man's friend before you can be his counselor. And so that's our approach. Sometimes we'll talk to a driver, and we may not get around to talking much about the Lord because it's just not where he's at right there. But then he'll come back the next time and say, I got a question for you. I've been thinking about this. I always wondered about this in the Bible, and away you go. So that's just a little idea of how trucking can be and how much stress is involved,
And I think that the majority of us, I'll call it the general public, because I'm not picking on one person, but I'm out there with a lot of different people through the years. I've been a sales rep, and I've had different jobs, and I do a lot of listening. And with what I do now, everything is relationships. And one thing, this is why I really wanted to bring you on here, Mark, was I grew up around trucks, short haul, long haul, local, whatever. But I never hear people talk about this except for, the truckers themselves. I remember my father telling me, I was the oldest of 5 when it was time for me to start driving, and he took me one day in the truck with him. And he just hauled real short for his own business. And he took me with him, and I thought I was just going to hang out with Dad. Well, I was, but he was teaching me and pointing out for me that I'm going to be a driver in a little 4-wheel car or even a big 4-wheel car, that a truck can't stop suddenly. There's all that weight behind them. And he taught me, what's the thing about, if I remember this correctly, if I am behind a truck and I can't see their mirrors, then I'm too close.
Right. Actually, even when you get to a certain spot up alongside of a truck, we call it the blind spot. We can't see you in our mirrors. So, that's why I always tell people, if you're going to pass a truck, go ahead and pass them quickly. They see you pull out to pass, then go ahead and get by them. Don't run alongside them, because it makes us nervous because we don't know where you are, and we don't know, and so that is a very important thing. Yeah, there's a blind spot thing.
Yes, and I'm thinking that. Go ahead.
If you get too close to the rear end as well, we can't see you in the mirror. So we go, well, there was a car back there. Are they back there? Where are they at? And that's why you'll see signs on the back of trucks. If you can read this, you're too close, things like that.
Yeah, and that I'm also thinking with this, your Association of Christian Truckers and how you have the Road Angel service and the different areas and where they can listen as they travel or call in, that also that is helping them relieve some of the stress maybe and not feel, I'm thinking that can be a lonely place out there.
Yeah, it's a very lonely place, but as a Christian, if we love the Lord and we know Jesus, and I was the whole time I drove, and even then there were times when it was tough, but when you know God and you know Jesus, and then if you can get some fellowship, because fellowship is a key. I tell people, if you want to stay stable in your calling, you need 2 things. You need more than that, but you need 2 things very important. You need prayer and you need fellowship, because fellowship keeps you accountable and prayer keeps you in touch with God. And so the thing is, these guys out here, they have a lot of time on their hands. Now they can listen to Christian music, they can listen to teaching, and that's what I did for a long time. In fact, I had a leader challenge me one time and say, well, you need to sit under me and be taught. And I said, well, what how long do you think I'd need to do that? And he gave me a time period. I said, what do you think I'm doing that 15 hours a day that I'm driving in that truck? I said, I've heard every one of your messages 7 or 8 times. Have you? I said, so it's, and I've also heard messages from people across the spectrum, see. So I was in class every day. And but one thing I wanted to have people recognize is truckers have their own nation. They're just like drivers. They're another country. They're just like bikers, I mean. They're another country. They have their own culture. They have their own social group. They have their own language. They have their own customs. And see, I had 80 hours of sociology, anthropology, and psychology. So I'm an ology major. But
hey, I have some of those ologies too. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But what I learned was, especially through those different idioms, I learned how to look at a person and be able to help understand where they're at. And as a minister, that's really important, because I don't jump to a wrong judgment because I mistook a cultural thing for a spiritual problem and things like that. But when I realized, I thought, man, these truckers, they are their own nation. It's like being a missionary to a foreign country. And it's the same way with bikers. I went to Sturgis Motorcycle Rally 8 years in a row to pray. And what I found out quickly was I was a good trucker minister, and some of those qualities helped me there, but I still had to learn their culture, their language, and their things, And so that's very important to understand, and that's why we need volunteers to help us come on and be missionaries, because that's what we are.
Okay, so you just led me into something else here when you said volunteers. If someone was interested or is interested in finding out about you, just said, okay, volunteers, where do they start? Do they go to the website? Do they contact you? Where do they begin?
Well, they can do either one. There is a place on the website they can contact the people who are here on the grounds. But if they want to contact me, that's perfectly fine. I have just moved into this interim directorship because we're adding another layer of executive oversight here. And so, and to be a volunteer, we require a background check, and we do vet you. We're not interested in if you just had something on your record. It doesn't mean you don't qualify, but we have to do our due diligence because we're working with the public every day here on the grounds, and there's several opportunities, including interaction with the drivers, cleaning, cooking, grounds maintenance, mowing grass. There's a lot of things that we do. So a lot of volunteer opportunities, and a person can volunteer for a week or a month or the rest of their life, whichever they want to do.
Okay, right now I'm looking at I've got your website up in front of me here on my monitor, and I noticed there is a tab that says Become a Member. Now, can you explain to me what exactly is that? Becoming part of the association?
You talked about how do they have that fellowship, that camaraderie. And what we do as the Association of Christian Truckers, and that word association is very important. We need to associate with other drivers. We need to associate with other ministries. We need to associate with churches. We need to associate with the trucking industry itself. And we are kind of what I say, like joint compound, to help bring these pieces together to work together. Now, the drivers, we have a membership. It's $30 a year, and it includes your wife. You get a hat, a certificate, and a card. And then you're on our email list, and I communicate with you. And the goal is to bring this group of members together to be able to go out on the road and take God's word to this nation. God spoke to me one time when I was going down the road, and he said, I want to use my drivers to deliver my word to this nation. It was clear as a bell in my mind. And I said, Lord, why would you want to do that? He said, because you know how to deliver things. I said, duh.
God is humorous, isn't he? Yes.
Yeah, he is. I said we should add a VA, you know. And then, but, you know, he went on to say, you know how to pick it up right, you know how to keep it intact, you know how to deliver it on time and where it goes, and you know how to take the stuff that's going to come at you when you do deliver. And that's so true. But, you know, there's a ton of drivers, just like there are church members, that say, well, I'd like to talk to people, but I just don't know how. You know, my goal with the membership is to help them to help each other, give them tools they can use. Like there's a book that we have from another ministry, and it's called Real Life Stories. And you take these books and you just hand them to people. Say, here, I have a gift for you. And they read this book, and it has 22 testimonies in it from Christians. We have one for the trucker community now, too, and it's real-life trucker stories. And we have my testimonies in there and several other people. And so they read these testimonies, and people get saved, they get healed, all kinds of things happen. So that's one thing. So we want to supply those tools to our drivers. And then I created the ACT members page on Facebook so that they can talk to each other in this group. You got to be a member to get on it, but then they can fellowship with one another. So it's a matter of organizing this army of truckers. We used to call them Knights of the Road. And
I like that.
So they can go out and deliver God's word to this nation. And so that's what we're all about. We've got about 80 members. We started over. We used to have 300 and some members, and then some things happened. The ministry kind of went downhill a little bit. But we started over. We have 80 now, and I expect that to grow exponentially. So that's what the membership's all about.
You know what? As I'm listening to you, this is what I'm seeing is in my mind. I'm a very visual person, and so and this is what happens. I see these trucks just going all over the U.S. here and there and around curves and highways and byways and there. And you know, this is becoming a member. It sounds like, okay, relationships of the heart, we're all about equipping and training. So is what you're doing with truckers, you are equipping and training them to serve as they're working, as and they have an opportunity to, well, as they go, as they're working, as they go, where they stop, that you are equipping them to reach other people and to support other people. And I have a really close friend, and she married someone who is a trucker, which is a whole new world for her. And so when she can, she's on the road with him, and it's a whole different world. And she is someone that I want to share this podcast with because she is a Christian and she has a heart for other people. She's a caring person. And and for her, though it's a whole different world. She's never paid any attention to it anymore. I just have because I'm around it. And so I just think it's awesome what you're doing here. I want to switch a gear here and kind of focus in the area of you as a leader, in the area of what do you see or what do you feel for yourself is the joys of your involvement in this as leading, being a leader in this organization?
Okay. Well, let me put a little bow on what we were talking about.
Okay.
Because that will lead right into what you're asking. So many years ago, when I was just starting driving and I didn't know that much, and I was in my church and I was singing and filling in for the pastor, and I ran into a truck stop chapel, a mobile chapel in the truck stop, and a little lady who I must honor, Chris Tackett, one of the great soldiers of faith. She was 5 foot. You got to get this picture. She had white cowboy boots. She had a maroon skirt just above the knee. She had a white blouse and a great big Jesus pin on her blouse and flaming red hair. And she was probably in her, late 50s, early 60s when I met her. Anyway, she had me into her chapel that night. When she found out I sang, of course, she had to have me sing. She always did that. If somebody had any talent, they were doing it, right? So, but I was new to this. I didn't even know these things existed. So I walked out that night, and she followed me right to my truck, and she put her bony finger in my face and said, "When are you going to start your ministry?" And I said, "Well, I told you I am. I'm helping my pastor. I'm doing this. I'm doing that." She goes, "No, your ministry on the road." And I said, and I just stopped. I thought, wow, what's she mean, ministry on the road? She goes, "You have a ministry out here, and you better get at it." So we said our goodbyes, and I went back to my truck, and I said, "God, when's my ministry going to start?" Now, you might not believe God talks to me, but I know he does. And he said to me,
"Oh, yes.
I've been carrying you all over the country, and you haven't done anything for me yet."
Ouch.
And he said, "I got you in
ouch.
Yeah. And he said, "I got you in an $80,000 motorhome, and I'm paying you to do it." So I said those famous words that have been said by Billy Graham and many others, "Okay, God, I'll go where you want me to go, I'll do what you want me to do, and I'll say what you want me to say." Now, I heard Billy Graham say that. I didn't even know he had said that. I heard a sermon of his, and he said, "I'll go where you want me to go, and I'll do what you want me to do, and I'll say what you want me to say. And, brother, if you say that, you better be ready." And I said, "Right on, brother," because every day since that day there has been an opportunity for ministry. And see, as a leader, as a person, we all need to say that. And then God will open the door. He's waiting. And so as a leader, my joy in this is of course, to see people come to Christ and to teach people and help them to understand that it's more than just saying a prayer, that it's more than just going to church. It's more than doing things. It is being a child of the living God. And so as leaders, we are the sons of God set upon this earth. We are the ones that the world is groaning for, and we are here to represent our Father and bring light to the gross darkness that's on the people. And that's my satisfaction. Every decision I make here at the Road Angel Trucker Center is to make better the experience of that driver coming in that driveway. And our motto is, when a driver comes in, you drop what you're doing. Nothing is more important than that person on this place. Mm-hmm. And so, as a leader, that's my joy, is to see these drivers come in and then come back and say, "Man, I just love this place. The spirit is so peaceful here." It's this, that's where I get my joy, because then I know that what we're doing is on track,
I believe as leaders, even when I was speaking with Irene yesterday on our podcast, and it's interesting as I'm listening to you also and to her and what she shared, it is about, when you just said dropping what you're doing, it's about relationships. And you said something, the same thing as she said as a leader, and this seems to be a common thread as I'm talking to and listening to leaders who relationships are important, and it's meeting that person where they are at. And what's going on with their life, and I'm going to add this. And so it's what you're doing. You're not comparing them to that other guy or that other person over there that I met with, but just stopping right there, and whoever is there that really needs someone to listen or come alongside of them, even if I'm going to say in your case, maybe it's someone that drops in, correct me if I'm wrong, but they pull their truck in and they're only there for 45 minutes and they're grabbing something to eat, but they may connect with someone from your organization like really quick, and they're struggling and they're out the door, but they still made that connection with you.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing now is there's a 30-minute break. After 8 hours, they have to take a 30-minute break. Well, you'll see a lot of them now planning to stop here for their 30-minute break. And
wow.
And the thing is, like I said before, we may talk to somebody, we may never get to talking about Jesus or God very much. I mean, we always are, because we always bring it up, but we may not get very far there. But what we've done is establish the relationship. We establish the beachhead. And then it opens the door a little further for another. And see, the Bible says deep calls to deep. And we want to get to the deep. You know, we want to hear their hearts cry. We want to hear what it really is that's, you know, people will talk to you and of course they're coming from the surface and they're trying to impress you with who they are or defend themselves or whatever they're doing. But that's not the deep. The deep is still down in there. And when we get to the deep, that's when relationships begin to blossom with Christ. And so it's a process. So, you know, some people come in here and they are Christians and they're looking for fellowship, you know. And then we're right there, Bible to Bible, you know, it's talking to each other. And at the same time, you can have somebody at another table that isn't really even saved, but they're wanting, they're looking, they're looking for the answers, you know. So yeah, it's exciting. I mean, we've invited a lot of church people to come out here, but they don't come out, and it's really bothers me because this is frontline ministry. This is evangelism every day. And if we could get them out here, they could get excited. They'd go back to their churches. They'd make their churches a better place.
Do you know what's very interesting is I'm listening to your remark right here about, you know, getting people involved who are Christians and attend church. In the Relationship of the Heart Conference and Workshop, the third session is reaching the heartbeat of Jesus. And mainly is what this is about is getting people outside the walls of the church. And so I've been kind of compiling, and your association is one of them, to use as an example, especially in the USA, to use as an example to people, because we all get caught in that same little box. And I think most people, even if they have been around trucks or they're familiar with it a little bit, they wouldn't realize that this exists and that it is a need. And that it's important. So I'm always looking for unique ways that people are coming alongside of other people, and we're doing it outside of the church. Because, yes, as when we started at the beginning, I think I said, you know, it is, I'm not saying don't go to church on Sunday and not to be there for those of us who our feet are in one place, right? But we also have to remember there are others who are not with us, not because they don't want to, but because they're unable to. And the answer isn't to say, well, then quit your job. I've been in one of these conversations. Then quit your job so you can be here on Sunday. But what if we said that to all truckers? Because you just said, I have these numbers I wrote somewhere, the 3 million, what'd you say, 3 million and then 6 million?
Yeah, there's 3 million over-the-road drivers. Then when you add all the local drivers and that, there's about 6 million trucks on the road. And so,
yeah,
you know, if it's been
how will you get your stuff, right? Yeah, how will you get your stuff? That's the practical side. Yeah, that's the practical side.
Right now, they're going through a trucker shortage. And, you know, the thing is, there are companies that are having a very tough time getting their freight hauled because there's not enough trucks. And so, you know,
so
it would
that
only
puts
take
the pressure
1 or 2
on.
days. Yeah, it would only take 1 or 2 days of the trucks not running, and your grocery store would be empty. And
That's
because,
true.
you know, the thing is that many years ago, our country went to a just-in-time mentality. In other words, I don't need a warehouse to get things ahead of time. I will just schedule the truck to be there right on the time I need it. Well, the downfall of that is if the trucks stop rolling, you're done. You know, you can't work out of your warehouse because you have nothing left. You know,
so, you know, that is true because yes. Go ahead.
And you know, one time I spoke to a pastor of a very large ministry, and I mean, you'd know them; they're nationwide. And I was at his service, and I just happened to walk up to meet him and said, "Hey, I'm Mark. I'm a truck driver." And he said, and some other people were trying to talk to me. He said, "Hey, hold on." He came over. He said, "I need to talk to you." I thought, oh boy, what did I do now? Because back then I wore a cowboy hat, had a long beard and all that, the boots and the whole 9 yards. So I'm thinking, man, what did I do? And he said, I need to talk to you. He goes, today, on my way to here, I was driving through Dallas, and he said, I looked up, and there was a truck driver. And I had never thought before in my whole life about truck drivers. And I felt this overwhelming sense of despair and things. And he said, I just didn't understand it. So I sat and talked to him and explained a lot of things. And, so I don't know what he ever did with that. But I'm just saying, that's where we are at. People don't even have a clue. You have another country running inside your country, and you don't know them.
Yeah, and it's like everything else. So I think we in our daily life we take for granted. Like we take for granted. For instance, I'll say this: I take for granted that my mail is going to show up, and I'm waiting for something, and the company said it will be here today. But I take for granted my mail is going to show up. So one day I'm waiting. That's the kind of trucking, right? They're little things. I'm in the city. They deliver with these tiny little, they're not really trucks, but
but it
and they
takes
pull
a big
up
truck
to
bring it to the city.
Yeah, that's right. And they take it to my curb here, but my mail didn't show up. And so my office is near the mailbox, and so it's like 6 at night, and it's dark, and that sounds like the mail truck. So I go outside, and I'm not mad. I'm just curious because the mail must go out, right? And the woman opens the door of her little vehicle, and she said, hello, and she's smiling. It is bad weather out there. And she's smiling. She said, I'm here to apologize. You're going to have a new driver, but is why she must have been a supervisor. She said, is why I'm here tonight. We have a whole lot of people that are ill right now. And so we're running double routes. And so like the trucker, it must go through. That mail is coming through. It's going 24/7. And when you said the just in time, I experienced this as a sales rep. I started, well, I'll age myself here, like long ago in my late 20s. And I stayed in the same industry for quite a few years. And so I experienced when it moved from the warehouse to the just-in-time. And you are right on that, just-in-time, because if our truck can't show up, the wholesaler, we would purchase from 3 different wholesalers, my next day orders weren't going to be there. But you take it for granted. We were a smaller company, so that makes it a little more personal. They call us, the guy's name, what's going on, and the details. But I think in everyday life, like my mail, I trust that it's just going to show up in the box. Or when I watched a cartridge I ordered, I won't even say company, but now we can watch online. So I'm thinking that's more pressure for drivers also, because I can see when this one package went from this place to this place to this place. I can see when it's on my way, and I can also know, because I always set up the alerts, when it's going to show up at my door. Now, I think that's neat, but on the side of a trucker, if I'm thinking correctly, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but that's probably added even more stress to the life of a trucker because it's all tracked minute to minute.
Yeah, and you can take it another step further. Just in the last couple of years, they have come out with what they call the ELD, electronic, not listening, but, I can't remember what it stands for. But at any rate, what it is in your truck is a device that tracks everything you do. And when you shut your truck off, when you stop, how long your break is, how long you've driven. And so now, and these guys are used to doing their own logbook on paper. And yes, sometimes they fudged them a little bit, but it was for the purpose of getting the freight there. And they were safe, but they, it's like this example. I go to a shipper. Now I'm sitting there at the shipper, and it's taken them 2 or 3 hours to unload me. I have to count that as my on-duty time. And now you can only work 14 hours straight. So you start your clock, you start going, you get into a shipper in the middle of your day, and it takes them 3-4 hours. You lost that many hours. You still only have 14 hours you can drive. So, it's very difficult, and that's put added stress on these guys because they can't make as much money as they used to make. And so, again, and where's the money? So they have had some raises. They're making a little bit more, but not in proportion to what it should be for this time that's taking away from their livelihood.
So this is where the Association of Christian Truckers comes in. Even with all these changes, you are still there, and on the positive side of this technology, as you mentioned earlier, they are able to connect online. They can listen to messages. They can connect with you. And I'm thinking also outside of that, as far as family goes, they can connect much easier than it used to be. And our world has changed. And I really want to thank you for joining me and sharing this with you, because I believe this will be an eye-opener to our listeners, not because they have ignored this, but, when we don't know. That's why I said I grew up around trucks. Right, yeah. We just don't know. It's like I travel out of the country. And, it took me a while. The first couple of trips I'd come back, and I was like, because you hear differently, Some of the places I'm in a village and I'm teaching a conference, which definitely isn't like being in here leading the conference. And I'd come back, and sometimes I'd get a little upset with people because you hear differently. And then finally, I can't remember if someone said something to me who has traveled longer, or the Lord just showed me this, but it was like knowing I did not know until I went. And God sent me. It doesn't mean I should be angry with people back in, we'll just say in my local area, wherever I'm living, because they don't understand. I didn't understand either. And I'm thinking it's the same thing when you mentioned culture. I wrote the word culture on a piece of paper here, and I circled it. And you said like a missionary. And when they train people to go to other countries, it's exactly what you just said. It's learning that culture. And here you mentioned, bikers and truckers, that the commonality in all of that is meeting the person right where they are at, and listening. And that's what Irene and I talked about a little bit yesterday also, is the listening to the person. And another thing I wrote down here is I really love, I like little sayings, is deep calls to deep. And getting to know that person. So before we sign off here today, how about you give me one more time what your title is and how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing?
Sure. Go ahead.
When the one thing that might kind of tie this all together, two things. One is, when I speak to a driver, I was a driver. I know their language. They're going to trust me before they'll trust you, because I speak their language. I know what they're saying. I know what their slang is. So that's one thing, and that's just like a missionary. You're better off to train a native missionary to do the work than you are to get a whole bunch of other missionaries that don't know what's going on.
Correct.
Okay, that's one thing. Now, to wrap this up, when I said when a driver comes in our driveway, we drop everything, and he's the most important person on our property. The end of that is we want that driver leaving our driveway having had the greatest experience we could ever give him, and going down the road with joy and peace and all the fruits of the Spirit operating, so that he now is a light to the community. And so, I'm Pastor Mark. I am the Director of Development. That means I go to truck shows and many things to promote ACT so that people know where we are. And then I'm also the interim director of the overall operation here. And yeah, and I really appreciate this opportunity, because anytime that I can communicate with people that don't understand truckers or what the trucking ministry would be, it's really golden. So, and I love what you do. I mean, I was drawn to your material because I saw relationships of the heart, and I thought that's what we do. You know, we want to know their heart. We don't want to. The surface stuff is only a vehicle to get to the heart.
You know, I really appreciate everything that you shared with us, and I'm looking forward to people listening to us and listening to your heart, because I really believe you've shared your heart with us. And yep, we're all about relationships here. Sometime I think that leading what I lead at Relationships of the Heart is like, Lord, this isn't what I signed up for long ago. But he prepares us, just like you were a trucker, right? You were with your cowboy boots and your gear, but you didn't know at the time that God was preparing you. And for me, I was a sales rep, but I've spent my entire life whatever I did around people. And then when I received Christ, it was interesting because I was a sales rep before I received Jesus Christ, and then I received Christ, and then I was a sales rep, and people had a lot of questions. I didn't go around saying, yeah, I made this decision, but I was in relationship with my customers, and it brought up many conversations. In fact, it was easier back then because of that big change. And so I want to thank you for everything that you do. I'm sure you put a whole lot of hours in what you do. Many of us do as leaders. But when it's something on our heart and it's what God's called us to do, I know sometime myself there may be a time I'll go to bed at night once in a while and say, because I can walk away from this. All of us can, right? And go do something else and say, okay, I'm done. And I get up in the morning and I'm rested. I go, okay, and I just get up and we do it again. And so I want to thank you. And is what we will do. This will be available online out there, and you will also be able to just grab the information that I send you and share it with your people also. So thank you again. And I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with me in this. I feel it's very, very important. And God bless you, Pastor Mark.
Well, God bless you, Nancy, and thank you for the opportunity. And roll on with Jesus.
Amen. So thank you for joining us on Relationships of the Heart. And I'd just like to end with a little bit of contact information here. To also look at the website, I want to bring that up one more time as we talk to Pastor Mark of the Association of Christian Truckers. The website address is ACTI70.org. Just take a look at that site there, and maybe if you are someone, maybe it's not something that you feel it's for you, but maybe you have a trucker friend, or maybe you know someone that would be interested in this information. It would be great if you would pass it on to them, share our podcast here, get in touch with Pastor Mark, or get in touch with me. To get in touch with me, email me at nancy@relationshipswithnancy.com. You can also join our community, and we're growing step by step, but to join us, all you need to do right now, it doesn't cost a dime, is just email me, nancy@relationshipswithnancy.com, and it's what I'll do. I'll sign you up, and it's what you will receive. You'll receive a newsletter and community news that'll come directly from my desk to you and let you know what we have available outside of our podcast here. Also, some people have asked about my book, A Hurting Heart Turned Inside Out. It is available on Amazon in paperback and now in Kindle. The Kindle version is only $2.99, so if that'll help you out in the area of your budget. And the revised version of Quotes from the Heart for Women Leaders is almost finished. I know many, if you have followed me, you have heard me speak about quotes from the heart for women leaders. It's almost ready. Well, it's what I decided to do was revise the original copy of Quotes from the Heart for you. So if you'd like to sign up and join us, just email me. You will receive information. We have courses online. One is Relationships of the Heart. It's called the Learning Community for Leaders. There's a free course on there. It's called Relationships of the Heart, and it's a 3-part mini lesson. So I've got videos included in this, and some text for you to go through. And then also I have available a course called Training for Community Group Leaders, and it's available for $29 for a limited time. So I've dropped that price for you. So, hey, remember, if you have any questions, just get in touch with me wherever you're listening to us out there, because we're just spreading this podcast wherever we can online. Make a comment if you're on a page where there's a comment section, or the best way to get in touch with me with your questions, your comments. Maybe you have someone you'd like to have us interview. Maybe it's you. Just email me and we'll connect and we'll talk about it. So until next time, stay close to the people around you in relationships and in community. Community is important.